What do you swear you saw, but don't have any proof of?
Experience 1. I saw a fox chasing a turkey on a hot summer day. They both tired out and stopped running at the same time and laid down to rest. Then they got up to continue the chase after about a minute. Some absolute cartoon nonsense that I swear happened, but I wouldn't believe me either. Experience 2. A lion at my parents' house when I was a kid. My older brother saw it too. Coincidentally, a lion went missing from a zoo in Ohio around that time and was never found. My brother and I swore we saw it, but obviously had no proof. That winter, my parents found giant paw prints outside that definitely were not a dog, cat, coyote, etc. Years later, when I was a freshman in high school, my friend's mom was driving me home and swore she saw a lion run across the road my parents live on. She never even knew the story about me swearing there was a lion out there. She was so convinced that she immediately called the police. That was all the proof I needed to know I was never crazy and knew what I saw as a kid. Edit, it was 2004 to 2006 or so when my brother and I saw it, so prior to the 2011 Zanesville, Ohio incident. The spotting by my mom's friend was around 2012. Experience 3. Sitting at the campsite, a beaver walks out of the lake on its hind legs and proceeds to walk like this through the campsite and into the woods like it's on its way to Pooch's house or whatever. Just strolling. Experience 4. When I was 13, 2008, my grandfather hung himself. He was a stoic old man who lived in rural Ireland. My family lived in the suburbs outside of Boston, Massachusetts. My mother was in pieces. She went to Ireland for the funeral, and when she came home, she cried herself to sleep every night. One night I'm up late getting myself a snack from the kitchen. I took my snack to go back to my bedroom and I saw him. My grandfather, just like I remembered, was slowly ambling up the stairs. I just stood there in silent disbelief. I've seen what people would consider ghosts, but the human mind is a weird thing, and I won't act like I'm any less prone to hallucinations than anyone else. But the next morning I sat down with my mom to have breakfast. She was quiet that morning and then said,
You know, I've been crying myself to sleep since I came back from Ireland. Last night I was crying, and I felt the sheets get tucked in behind me just like my daddy used to do when I was a little girl. I reached behind me, but I couldn't feel anything. Your father wasn't home yet, so it wasn't him. Then I fell into the most peaceful sleep I've had in ages.
Her bedroom was at the very top of the stairs. I wasn't sure if I should tell her that I had seen her father the night before. I didn't know how it might impact her. I kept it to myself until years later when she retold that story. When she heard my side, she wasn't even surprised. She just said,
I believe you. You wouldn't believe the things I've seen.
Experience 5. Sort of a stretch in the question, but when I was a little girl, I had a dream where I lived an entire life. The dream felt like a lifetime. I grew up, got married, had children, and grew old with my husband, and I died. I still remember the peace of dying and thinking to myself that I was so happy and lucky for the blessed life I lived. As I and my husband get older, he starts to look and feel more like the man I grew old next to in my dream. I woke up right after I died, crying. I couldn't have been more than 9 or 10. Experience 6. I was doing laundry, and after opening the door to take the clothes from the washer, a live grasshopper flew out and hit me in the chest. It scared the crap out of me because it was so unexpected. A grasshopper somehow got into my laundry, survived the entire wash cycle, and had enough life in him to jump out and hit me. I threw him back outside. I joked and said he's immortal. He's probably still out there somewhere. Experience 9. When I was little, I was in bed with my parents one night. They were sleeping, but I was awake in the dark. I swear I saw the apparition of a young boy, around my age at the time, 6, climbing on the nightstand. I remember vividly he had a white and red basketball jersey on, with a dark brown bowl cut. A few years later, on the first day of 4th grade, a new student came into the classroom, literally took my breath away. He looked exactly like the ghost boy I saw that night. Experience 10. I went on my honeymoon at the Sandals Grande in St. Lucia. I went scuba diving one day, just from the resort course, so not deeper than 30 to 50 feet or whatever. I was out by myself with an instructor in the shallow ocean and didn't bring a camera on that particular dive. I swear I saw a full office-spaced laser printer on the ocean floor. Pieces everywhere. But I don't have any proof. Experience 11. Faceless people. Once standing under the light outside my grandparents' garage. When I asked my grandfather to look, nobody was there, and he said he never saw anyone. The second time, I was being kept out of my grandparents' living room, and when I accidentally walked in, one was lying on the sofa bed. When later asked about being kept out of the room, my grandmother denied it ever happened. Still a vivid set of memories from my childhood. No explanation. Experience 12. Driving down the freeway through a major military base. About a mile in front of us, a huge bolt of electricity, I.d. presumed lightning, struck a tree about 25 yards off the road. As we came up to it, there was a bunch of white Econo vans, white coats, and instrumentation-looking stuff on a table and other equipment. No tree on fire. Get back home, researched the hell out of it, and could find nothing. Buddy and I still agree today on what we saw. No record of any kind of it or the area or anything. Experience 13. My best friend died almost a decade ago now. Damn, I miss her. Without knowing it, I cooked her last dinner and said my last goodbye. I went home to get some sleep. At 2:01 a.m., I felt something wake me up. I opened my eyes, and for just a few seconds, I saw a gray, not black, blob-like one-dimensional shadow moving across the ceiling. The shadow wouldn't make any sense with the angles of the windows and the streetlights. I lived in that house for many years and never saw a shadow move like that. I had two perpendicular beams on my ceiling intersecting at the center of my ceiling. The shadow crossed over the two beams without hugging the vertical faces of the wood. It was as if the shadow was floating through the air like smoke. It wasn't smoke, as there was no smell. No candles in my room either. And then it was gone. Trying to figure out what I saw, it took me a while to fall back to sleep. The next morning, I got the call that my best friend died at 1:35 a.m., 26 minutes before something woke me up. To this day, I am convinced I saw her soul floating above me, somehow saying goodbye. I have no idea if I'm correct, but that's how I feel. I'm not a religious person. I believe in science, but I can't ignore that night's experience. I know science will figure it out one day. I miss you. I think about you every day. Experience 14. A possessed house or whatever. Worked for the local utilities reading water meters while in school. Old ass house. Was used as a makeshift hospital during the Civil War. The meter was all the way in the back, and they had apparently redone the basement so there were new concrete walls, but the original stone foundation was still there. Sort of like a maze. Went in and read the meter, took a wrong turn, and got lost. I kind of panicked and got lost again. It was only a handful of walls because they wanted a game room and bar. Calmed down, found the meter again, followed the walls, and after a couple of minutes, found the exit outside. The dude I was with asked what the hell happened and told him I got lost, but not a big deal. He asked how I got lost. Told him, the new walls. He asked what walls. Looked back inside and there weren't any walls. Just a dark big-ass basement. Apparently, I was in there for like an hour. He came in after catching up to get his lighter, never saw me, walked back out, and kept on reading meters for an hour before he saw me coming back out. He assumed I walked out upstairs and was talking to the guy who owned it. And he'd catch me at the end of the street. I know I saw walls. I know I got lost. And it sure as hell wasn't no hour. Edit, for those wondering, here's a link to the house on Zillow. The house was getting remodeled in the early 90s, and the owner sold it a few years later when he went bankrupt. It's changed hands, I think, multiple times, according to some people I know who still live there. It's finally getting some attention to be remodeled. It belonged to a surgeon or doctor who bought it from a reverend who was rumored to be into some dark stuff. According to some newspaper clippings, the basement was used as a makeshift morgue and the rooms upstairs were used as were during the Civil War. Experience 15. I was hiking the Appalachian Trail and was sitting up in one of the metal roof shelters. Was about 5 miles from Hot Springs, North Carolina, and wanted to spend the day there, get a hot meal etc. As I was doing a safety circle check, I saw something in the trees. It's a dude, just chilling up there. I point my flashlight at him and it's gray, curled clawed hands and feet and shiny eyes. I blink and it flings itself down the trunk and across the underbrush. 3 seconds, max. I know I was exhausted, but I don't think I would have hallucinated sound, smells, and motion. I see its eyes still. Experience 16. Thunder snow. In college, we had team workouts at 5:30 a.m. during the winter. When we emerged from our dorms, we were greeted by an absolutely insane lightning display combined with driving snow. The walk across campus was absolutely insane, like something from the day after tomorrow. When we finished the workout around 7, it had warmed up and had changed to rain and everything had melted. There were 25 guys on the roster, and we all knew what we saw, but none of our friends believed us. Experience 17. A shadow person. I saw someone in my kitchen late at night who I thought was my father standing by the stove. It was dark and I jumped when I saw his silhouette in the dark. I asked him what he was doing standing in the kitchen in the middle of the night. He just stood in the dark, not moving. I told him it wasn't funny, it's freaking creepy. I flipped the light switch on. I was alone. Nobody was there but me shaking from terror. I couldn't see him clearly, but I saw someone with his shape in the dark. I talked to it. Nobody will ever believe I saw that. I know what happened that night. I talked to it for about 30 seconds. It stood 6 feet from me. P.S. Maybe I'm freaking crazy. When I think about it, it's easier to convince me I hallucinated, had some sort of psychotic episode, or was seeing things instead of what really happened. Edit, I wasn't sleeping. It was late night, but I was on my computer in my room eating a snack at night. I went to wash my plate in the kitchen and saw someone standing at the stove. He was blocking the clock from the stove. I could see the shape because of the green glow of the clock. It was the only lighting in the kitchen. Experience 18. I have 2 things. Both happened when I stayed at my mom's house. They live about half a mile off the main road in the woods. These events happened in the mid to late 90s. First thing, I was about 15 or so. I was lying in bed asleep. In the middle of the night, the whole outside was lit up with bright lights. The glow woke me up as it was shining in my windows and quickly went away. It wasn't like a beam of light, more like if someone flipped on stadium lighting for a minute or so. The second thing was at my mom's house on a different day. Around 7:30 to 8 a.m. I was walking between the living room and kitchen, and I heard these angelic voices harmonizing from above, I guess. It lasted like 10 to 15 seconds. Never heard anything like that before or since. My mom has a lot of angel figurines displayed, but the sound wasn't from them. I don't even think she has any that would play music, and what I heard was surreal and wasn't a recording. Experience 19. Ghosts on the Gettysburg battlefield. For the longest time, I chalked it up to reenactors and a wild imagination, until several years later, I was back at the park and visiting a bookstore. I overheard another customer telling the clerk the exact same story I had witnessed, down to some pretty specific details. Experience 20. I used to be able to consciously levitate in my very vivid dreams. In my dreams, the power to fly would wane and gain, come and go. It required hard concentration to stay airborne. Super vivid, amazing reality that I loved. I knew I was dreaming but could control my flight. I had a dream at 16 years old. I was especially buoyant and decided to fly around my old neighborhood. I remembered the flight path and a blue roof that I didn't think was blue. I went to the house to check later, and the roof wasn't blue. I was bummed that it was just a dream and not real. I didn't leave my body like it felt. The flying dreams stopped eventually. 8 years later, I was on a Forest Service helideck crew and dispatched to a lightning strike in my neighborhood. As we were flying over the area, I went into shock as the pilot followed the exact same flight path as my dream. I predicted the turns in the air, and as I looked down, the freaking roof was blue. Experience 21. I talked to my dead mother on the phone 3 weeks after she died. My mom passed away January 2021. I flew from Florida to Kansas City for the funeral with my husband and daughter. We attended the services, closed out her estate, and returned home. About 3 weeks later, I'm lying in my bed and my phone rings. I was awake when the phone rang. I had been lying there debating getting out of bed or just lying there feeling sorry for myself, but I was wide awake. I sat up in my bed to look at my phone. I don't remember what the caller ID showed, but I answered. My mom had a very distinctive way of answering the phone when she was calling someone. "Well, hi there." Chuckle, "Did I wake you up?" That was exactly what she said. I just sat there holding the phone for a minute and then said, "Mom?" And then there was a click of a phone turning off and the universe resetting itself. My mom was dead. I attended her funeral. I saw her in the casket. My mom also called me at some point after she died. Her phone was not in the possession of my brother, my aunt, or mom's boyfriend, the 3 people who were closest to her and would have received the phone. None of them would have played a joke like that. I'm not even sure where her phone went after she passed. Experience 22. I made some friends while working retail who enjoyed exploring abandoned buildings, and I went with them once. The massive industrial complex was left to rot in the 80s after the work dried up in that sector. I got separated from the group in an upper part of the building and could barely see a thing. They insisted we go at night. I tried a few light switches, and one actually turned on a light that had a red shaded bulb, which I found strange. Even stranger, several men were standing in the room with me that I couldn't see until the light came on. At least 3, maybe more, standing adjacent to each other with strange clothes. One of them had a rifle in his hands, not a hunting rifle, a mil-spec type, and another was staring into my soul with his huge blue eyes. He said nothing but placed his finger over his lips as if to shush me. After a second, he waved his hand to shoo me away. I quite literally fell down the stairs trying to get away and found my friends a few hallways away. I told them we weren't alone and that we had to leave. They saw the fear in my eyes and believed me. On the drive home, I told them what I saw, albeit I was a stammering mess, and they were flabbergasted. I told no one and dropped all those friends. Some nights I wonder about their identities and objectives in that building.
We hope you enjoyed listening to today's stories. If you want to see more stories, check out these videos or check the links in the description for more videos. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And ring that notification bell.